Good afternoon and welcome to Russound. I want to thank you guys for joining me here. Spend your lunchtime. We're going to sit down and run through a little bit of web config for you. Web config. We're going to try to simplify this for you. I have three goals in this webinar. Number one is to kind of dig pretty deep in the web config and give you a little bit of a detailed overview of what web config can do for you. My second goal is to show you just how simple and easy it is. Once we run through some of these slides and some of these screenshots and show you how to do this stuff, you're going to see just how easy web config is. Simple to understand, simple to navigate. And my third goal is to get you guys back to work on time within the hour. So with that, let's get rolling. Web config, the browser-based software tool from Russound. Thank you for joining us. Remember when? Any of you out there remember PC Power Tool? Any of you out there that have been doing Russound for any amount of time whatsoever, if you go back to the CAV, CAM days, PC Power Tool, you know, it was awesome. It was awesome software in the day. It was groundbreaking stuff, you know, but it was, you know, again, it was in the baby stages, right? I mean, you had to go into the Russound catalog and you had to buy this CD called PC Power Tool for $300, and you had to register it, and then, you know, you had to install it onto your laptop, and if you had other guys in your company, you had to register them as well to be able to use that software. And then you had to connect to your controller using a USB to serial cable, and everything was manual, and then everything was really, really nice, you know, setting up zones, setting up sources, everything. And then came the time, you know, when you had to hit that button called write to device. And then you sit there and really hope that that configuration file that you just spent hours on, you're hoping that it's going to upload to that controller problem free, right? Oftentimes you end up like that guy ready to drive his fist through his laptop right there. Could be pretty frustrating. But again, awesome software. And the only thing you could do from there was build on it and make it better, right? So things have come a long way over time. And web config is not PC Power Tool. Web config is quite different. What we've done here is we've found a way to skirt around that whole mess, and we're taking the easy route now. Web config, what is it? Well, it's a browser-based configuration software is what it is, available through any local network, and it's designed to be used with any internet browser. And no more connecting to your device with a cable. No more serial to USB to serial cables, things like that. You know, USB cables, what have you. No more of that. You can now just connect wirelessly, and no more cables required. And web config is extremely simple and easy to navigate, and very, very simple and easy to understand. Also, it allows the Russound certified installer to connect via the IP address of the device using their phone, their tablet, or their laptop. They can easily just take the IP address of the controller and put it into web config, and that will get them in there. That'll allow them to be able to go in and unlock and configure all of the Russound RCI products in the line. And now the installer has the ability to get that system up and running right from that phone or from that tablet quickly and easily. I was on a job site with an installer recently, a couple of months ago, where he was doing, he had just completed a 16-zone Russound system for a customer, and he pulled out his phone and got into web config, and he had that entire system set up and running so that customer could use it that day, had it done in about 20 minutes. Enough so that that guy could operate. He went back in later, did a few little more fine tuning with some custom naming and stuff like that once the customer knew what they really wanted to finish up for sources and stuff. But 20 minutes, that thing was up and running beautifully. But with WebConfig, are you certified? You need to be certified by Russound in order to get all of the great benefits of WebConfig when you're going in to set up a controller such as an MCA88X or what have you. The Russound Certified Installer Program was designed to protect you guys, the installers out there in the field, to protect your profits so that you don't end up like it was before, where you go in and you take all of your knowledge and your experience and all of these little tricks you've learned through the years, and you design a beautiful system for a customer that covers everything that they wanted, and it solves all of their problems and addresses all of their concerns, and you've gone through all of that, and then only to find that, oh, well, I found this cheaper on the internet. That's the last thing that guy wanted to hear. Well, with the Russound Certified Installer Program, all of our Russound controllers and products, streaming products within the program are shipped locked, okay? All of these guys are shipped in a locked state. You can't do anything with them. They will not operate until an RCI connects and unlocks the system. On power up, the interface is going to tell them that this product is locked and it must be unlocked by a Russound certified installer before it can be configured. So we're trying to protect you guys, you and your margins. Russound is all about the installer. Everything we do is for the installer, from the design of our gear to the way that we market our products as well, such as with the Russound Certified Installer Program. We have an average of 3 to 5 guys registering and becoming Russound certified installers every day. 3 to 5 a day. There are literally thousands. There were over 5,000 last time I looked. You guys are out there. WebConfig, this is for you guys. Our web configuration software makes setup a breeze. Now, the Russound certified installer lineup includes these fine Russound multi-room audio components. The MCA66, this is a killer 6-zone, 6-source controller amplifier. Has all the right features, beautifully done. The MCA88, 8-source, 8-zone. And then you go to the 88X, which is the MCA88, but we add a streamer on board as a source, right on board. The X-source. This guy right here, we are selling hundreds of these a month. These are all over the place out there. Everyone has realized now that this little streamer right here can turn any system into today's system very easily. You could take this little streamer, connect it to an amplifier, connect a pair of speakers, open up the app, and the app will act as a preamp to control this guy. You have a full streaming system just by using this little guy with an amp and a pair of speakers. You can add it to any system, and in the commercial world, it's really making a huge splash. The X-Zone 4 is 4 of these guys in one chassis. So it's 4 zones of the X-Source streaming. Very cool piece. The X-Zone 70V, this is one that has hit the market by storm. This one right here is a 300-watt mixer amplifier for light commercial installations, and this guy also has an extreme streamer built right on board as a source, right out of the box. Millions of songs. So this is your RCI lineup right here. These fine products need to be configured with WebConfig in order to be able to access all of the great features that they have to offer. How do you access WebConfig? Well, it's pretty quick and easy, actually. You're going to go in and power up all of your Russound devices. Then you're going to determine the IP address of your device. You could take, for example, Fing. You know, most of the people out there in the field, you all have Fing on your phone or on your iPad, right? And it's a great tool. What it does, it'll tell you all the IP address of everything that's on that network where you are. So you can use that if you want, or you can obtain the IP address right from a keypad or XTS or what have you. I'll show you how to do that. But all you're going to do is find that, determine what the IP address is of your device, and then you're going to enter that IP address into your web browser and that's going to take you right to web config. It's that simple. If you're going to find it on an MDK-C6 keypad, all you're going to do is you're going to go from the home menu, you're going to scroll down and select settings, then you're going to select installation, then you're going to select network settings, then bingo, there it is right there. The IP address staring you right in the face. All you got to do is pull that IP address, enter it in that web browser, boom, you're in web config. If you happen to have an XTS in the wall, then you go to that XTS and you from the home screen, you're going to select audio settings and you're going to see an X up there in the corner. Just press that guy until you reach admin settings. And then, once again, bingo, there it is. You find the IP address right there, right at the top of that list. How cool is that? Just take that IP address, plug it into that browser, you're in the web config, right? When you're in the web config, what are we going to do in there? Well, there's all these different options you can do. What I'm going to do is I'm going to walk through a couple of these that are pretty important, and then we're going to get to some screenshots and show you how to navigate around in there and actually go in and find these features and how you're going to activate them or enable them or disable. You know, the cool thing about web config is it's not programming anymore. I don't even call it programming. It's configuring, and configuring is even a sophisticated word to use for this type of action, because really it's following a setup wizard more than anything. You're going to be clicking on enable, disable, and so on, just following the setup wizard, and then every once in a while you're going to go in and do some little custom names, this or that. But other than that, it's simple. But in these configuration options, we've got some really cool things in there. For example, for zones and sources, there are drop downs that have predetermined, predefined names available in those drop downs. In your zone drop down, you'll see things, you know, kitchen, living room, bedroom, dining room, all of your standard room stuff in your room names in your zone list. And then in your source list, you're going to find, you know, DVD, CD player, cable box, what have you. And that's all fine and good, you know, if you want to go in and do these generic names and be boring and just select them off of a list. I would prefer to do custom naming. I think it's a great idea if you personalize the system for the customer. You'd be amazed at the power that has. You just look at someone's face when they see their name appear on a interface, and you'll know what I'm talking about. I learned it back when we were doing All Wired Up University, when the iPod was first introduced, and Russound came out with the very first iPod dock in the industry. It was awesome, called the BGK one, and it turned your iPod into a source, right? Well, when you drop that iPod into that dock, it would come up and tell you whose it was. So we'd pluck someone out of the audience and we'd have them drop their iPod into that dock, and they'd look at it, and all of a sudden it would say Mike's iPod, and they'd go, how did it know it was me? You know, I mean, literally, you see their face light right up. So custom naming, don't underestimate the power of personalizing that system. They'll remember you, and they'll want to continue to grow that system with you because it keeps them excited and invested in that system. Source exclusion. I can go into any zone and tell it what sources I want available to that zone. My kids' room, I may not want SiriusXM available on that keypad in the kids' room, because I don't want them to turn on SiriusXM and all of a sudden be listening to Bubba the Love Sponge. So in the kids' room, I'm going to exclude SiriusXM from their menu of sources in that room. And when they go and turn on that keypad or go to the app or what have you in that zone, all they're going to see is the sources that are available to that zone. They're not going to see the ones that I excluded from that zone. Party mode. I also can go in any zone in web config and determine whether that zone is going to participate in party mode or not, and whether it can become the party master or not. And party mode allows you to be able to grab sole control over source selection and volume for the entire system, for every zone. So do you really want to be able to do that from every room in the house? Again, think about the kids' room, especially if you got a teenager. Be careful. You never know what's going to be playing throughout that house, and you won't be able to do anything about it because they'll be the party master. So you may not want to do that in that zone. Zone linking. This is a really, really cool feature. For many years, people asked for zone linking without calling it zone linking. They usually said, hey, I have a MCA 66, for example. Today's part numbers would be MCA 66. But I'm only doing 4 zones. I have 2 zones left over that have amplifiers. How can I use those? Well, what they were asking for is zone linking. They wanted to be able to take zone number 5, zone number 6, and link those amplifiers to one of the 4 zones they're using so they could drive another pair of speakers in that zone. That's what they were asking for. We gave it to them. Zone linking is an awesome feature. And just for those reasons, if you have like a MCA 88 and you're only doing 5 zones, you have 3 zones left over, that you could, and one of them is amplified, and you could take that and link it to one of the zones you're already using and add another pair of speakers into that zone without adding an outboard amplifier. You already bought it. It's already there. So you just zone linking. You can also do cool things like take a 88 and split it down the middle. Make it a 2-zone controller. Each zone runs 4 pairs of speakers, and each zone has its own keypad. So now you've turned it into a 2-zone amplifier, each zone with 4 sets of speaker outputs. How cool is that? Zone linking. It's awesome. And these, you can do 2 groups, by the way, of zone linking. I could do zone 1 and 2, and then zone 5 and 6, for example, group 1, group 2. And these groups will share source selection and party mode participation as well. They truly act as one zone when you link them together. All on, I can define in those within web config on each zone whether I want it to participate in all on, all off. Okay? Grammy's room, you may not want to have that one come on with all on. I would take more of the rooms that are used by the common rooms that are used by pretty much everyone in the house and have those all come on with all on. And then bedrooms, things like that, maybe have those separate. You've got to turn them on manually in each zone. Also, bass, treble, balance, loudness, turn on volume, all these initial settings can be done within web config. You can really fine tune and EQ this system to try to make it sound just as great as you can. It's all about sound. That's why they bought this. I mean, how big, how many zones, how much, how many streamers, how many music services, all these questions, but how does it sound? That's why they bought it, to listen to music. So you got to make sure that you use awesome speakers, okay? Don't use cheap speakers. Use great speakers, and then go in and make sure that you set all your settings to make those great speakers sound even better. So basically what you're doing is you got to determine in each zone, what am I looking at? What do I have in front of me? Is this room acoustically live, or is it acoustically dead? An acoustically live room, a lot of wood, a lot of glass, hard walls, hard floors, tiles, you name it, sparsely furnished. Music is going to bounce all over the place. It's going to be bright. It's going to be harsh. Tone it down. Bring that treble down a little bit. Tickle the bass up a little bit. Smooth those rough edges. Now you go to the next room. What are you presented with? Whoa, this room is acoustically dead. This one has carpet and everywhere, and it has drapes, and it has stuffed furniture, and it has all kinds of stuff in the room that eats up all these frequencies. I need to make sure that I brighten this one up a little bit. I'm going to, work that treble up just a little bit, smooth that bass down. Make sure you do not enable loudness in that room, because it'll just sound totally muddy. And then my turn on volume, what do I want it to come on at what level when I do turn this on? And then after that's all done, before you hand the keys to the system to the customer, make sure you go back through every zone again and now EQ it from the interface. Bass, treble, balance, fine tune, make sure it sounds perfect. You only get one chance to make a first impression. Remember that. Also, With sources, I can do anything. With Russound sources, with third-party sources, I can do anything with IR I want. I can do key code learning, you know, like for example, the same thing like as if you had a cable box and you just got a new TV and you want that cable remote to be able to operate that TV. You got to learn that key code for that TV, right? And you got to try different codes until you come up with the right one. Same thing here. We have onboard IR code libraries in all of our gear with literally hundreds and hundreds of IR key codes that you can select from regardless of what type of device and what brand you happen to be using. We also have numeric IR in there. So if your customer wants to add that 200 disk changer that they had, you know, sure, we can plug that guy in. And then we go into numeric IR, and it's a 200 disk changer, and we know that to operate that guy, you got to hit disk, say disk 30 play, right? You got a prefix and then a numeric and then a suffix. And so I can take that now and do numeric IR in web config and give it, what I would do in that case is give that piece a max value of 200 so that anything I wanted to do, disk 1 play, disk 2 play, all the way up to 200. All I would have to do, I wouldn't have to hit the prefix and the suffix. All I would have to do is select that source and hit 10, and now disk 10 will play. It's that kind of thing. Look, if whatever device source that you're adding, if the IR key code does not happen to live on the IR code library, well, guess what? Now you can learn IR. So it doesn't matter. I can learn any of the keys that I want right into web config. So now that third-party device, I can learn play, stop, pause, skip forward, all that kind of stuff. So again, anything you want to do with IR and sources, no worries. I also can select my page input source, whether like on MCA 66, source number 6 input can be used either as a paging input or as a regular source input. I would assign it as a paging input or a source input within web config. On MCA 88 or 88X, source number 8 is, you can either be a dedicated page input or source input, selectable right here in web config. Additional features in web config, I can go in and set my static IP from DHCP. Very, very easy to do. Automatic firmware updates. How cool is that? You know, you go back a ways and firmware updates, you had to go in and squeeze them in there, didn't you? And it was always painful. But automatic is a very cool word. And automatic firmware updates, all I'm going to do is go to my firmware update section within web config, and I select automatic firmware updates and assign a time that I would like them to happen, like 3 in the morning, what have you. Boom, gonna happen. Nice. Zone volume trim. You know, again, this is a feature that back in the days of all Wired Up University, we had some fun. We used to call this the Drunk Larry feature. And my apologies to anyone out there named Larry. I did not pick that name. I can tell you who did, but he's probably on the webinar, so I'm not going to say it. But zone volume trim, what I do is I go in and I set a max volume within web config for that zone. Now when Drunk Larry is at my party and he leans on that volume knob thinking that, you know, on the volume button, hey, look at that, I got it all the way up to 10 and it's still clean. What do you think of that? Well, he's not really up to 10, is he? Because we trimmed it in web config. We protected ourselves from Drunk Larry. You can also select source type and volume trim for the source. So now you select your source type, DVD, CD, cable box, what have you. And then you go in and trim the volume level of the source. So we've all had it, we've all experienced in the past where we light up our system and then we, you know, go to TV and the volume is way up here, and then you go to CD player and the volume is way down there, and then you select your streamer and the volume is back up here. The volume's all over the place. Well, within web config you can key on each of those sources and adjust the volume trim so that when your customer migrates from source to source to source, they're going to have a consistent output level for every source. Macro setup. There's a macro builder in web config. Very cool. You can do up to 10 10-step macros. A macro is a series of control commands that execute sequentially with a single button press. So I don't have to train my customer to turn on the receiver, select DVD as a source, turn on the DVD player, oh, turn on the TV, one button, turn the receiver on. Select DVD as a source. Turn the DVD player on. Turn the TV on. Hit the play button for DVD. Single button. 5 steps occur and you're watching a movie. Much easier. Much, much easier. They simplify operation unbelievably. Keypad button configuration. This one, I can go in and I can customize the buttons on the keypad if I want. I could hide a function behind a function. I could do a press on a button to do one thing, and then if I press and hold that same button, it'll trigger something else, like a macro. I can hide a function behind a function. I can configure that right in web config. Power management, all on, all off, keeping my system in sync. All on, I do an all on command from my app or from my keypad. The controller turns on, all the sources turn on, life is good. I do all off. Controller turns off, 5 minutes later, all the sources shut off. That's the way it should be. Power management. Backup and restore. I can back up a configuration file, and then if I have to say factory init my controller, now I can restore that right back to the controller. I can save and load configuration files so that if I happen to have multiple jobs that are mirror each other, I could just use that same file and continue to dump it into the controller on each of those sites. So with all of these features here, I mean, let's get into some screenshots. Let's see how you actually do this stuff. But first of all, let's get in there, okay? You got to make sure, once again, though, are you certified? If you're not, get a hold of us so that we can get you certified so that you can get in there and play with web config. And you'll see the power behind this. 2 things must be done that require an internet connection. First of all, you need to enter your Russound certified installer credentials. You're not going anywhere unless you are Russound certified. So get a hold of us. Let us get that done for you, because our products they're all ship locked, and they got to be unlocked and configured by an RCI. And plus, you need to be able to go in and check the latest firmware updates in all of your devices that you're going to set up. Never work with gear with old firmware on there. Always make sure that you got the latest firmware on there. And if you plan on installing this on a job site that doesn't have internet access yet, make sure that you set it up at your shop and everything works great before you bring it over to the job site. Save yourself the headache, okay? The hair falls out by itself. Don't make yourself rip it out. Now, how do you go in and unlock this thing? All right, well, you got to go in and enter your RCI credentials, right? And you got a page here that shows you how to go in and put in your username and password. How the heck do I get there? Well, if I'm on my handheld device, once I get my IP address and enter it into the browser, I'm going to see this right here saying, hey, this thing's locked. It has to be configured by a Russound certified installer. And it's got a link for me to hit. And now that'll take me right to this page so I can put in my username and password. If I'm on an MDK, this is what it looks like right here. This device must be configured by the Russound certified installer. How cool is that? That would be you. How's that? Now once I get in there, once I enter my username and password, I'm going to go in now and we're going to use 88X here that we're connected to, okay? This is the status page right here, and what it does is it shows you the host, which is the 88X itself that is network connected. And then on board of the 88X, we also have a network piece called the streamer, right? So now we're going to have 2 IP addresses for this one chassis, one for the host, one for the streamer. And it'll give you all of your information, your status information for both right here on the status page. And you're looking at that status page right there. It's right under next to the Russound logo. Now, after I've looked at this, if I want to, I jump over to the upper right hand corner. You see the little button up there that says MCA 88X. Now let's have a closer look at that, because once I hit that drop down, what it's going to do is it's not only going to, I'm not only looking now at the status of the 88X, but it's also showing me that there is an X Zone 4 on the network with this guy, and there's an X source on the network with this guy. They'll all need to be configured, right? So what I would do is I just take, for example, my X Zone 4 or my X source, I just click on that, and it will take me right to the right page in web config to configure that particular device. How cool is that? Select X Zone 4, you go right to the X Zone 4 page in the web config to start working on that guy. Very, very simple and easy. Now the admin drop down, within the admin drop down, you have networking, you have firmware updates, you have keypad updates, system check, project information, backup and restore, and factory reset. That's where I'm going to find my ability to be able to go in and navigate and control all of these within the admin dropdown. So let's go have a look. First one is networking. Let's go look at that one first. Networking is going to show me the IP address information on this guy, and this is where I would go in and decide whether I'm going to take that and whether I want to set it as static or not. If I set it as static, I just hit apply, and then I'm good to go. So always set static IPs. Don't leave it up to the router to just randomly send out those DHCP IP addresses. Set a static IP address on all of your stuff in the network. It's the best way to go. Firmware updates was next on the list. This is so cool. All I have to do is go down here, hit under automatic updates, hit enable, and pick a time. Done. I mean, if I want to do it manually, I can select above my update method, whether it's going to be a web update or a file update for something I downloaded from the portal, okay? But automatic updates, why not? Why not, right? That's right there in the firmware update. Keypad updates, no longer do you have to do keypads one by one. You just set it up, either do file update from the portal, or you do web update. Either one. Nice, nice. System check will get you in there and show you that you have the right firmware on everything. Also, project information page. That will let you go in and set up all that information that you need in order to create a file for this particular project. Now, backup and restore. With backup and restore, this is where I would go in and I could take my configuration, and I could take my entire configuration and download my configuration from the MCA88X and give it a name and save it if I wanted to. Then I could take and browse back to that and upload it back to the MCA88X. I can do the same with a source template. Just download it, pick my source type, give it a file name, save it. And then if I want, I go back in, browse for it, upload it back up to the 88X. So, okay. I just got passed a note here from tech support and saying that within the webinar, GoToWebinar, they're not able to moderate answering questions in real time right now. So the note I just got is to let everyone know, email tech@russound.com, and they'll immediately answer your questions. They're sitting in there waiting for them right now, okay? So basically it's just tech@russound.com, and you go ahead and send in any questions that you have, and the guys in tech support will be answering your questions in real time. We thought we had a moderator on board, and for some reason that part of the module is not working. So send them on into tech support, and we'd be glad to help you out. Now you have factory reset as your next button in there. With factory reset, it just does a reset all the way right back to factory right out of the box, locked state. Side note on this, on the back of your controllers, you also have a little orange button that says reset right next to the button. And with those, it's two different functions that those have. If you just press and hold that little orange button for 3 seconds, it will take any static IPs you've set in there, and it'll set everything, default it back to DHCP. All you do is press that reset button for 3 seconds. Reset back to DHCP. If you press and hold that same button for 10 seconds, it will completely reset the entire controller back to right out of the box condition, just like this button here will. Now, next to the admin tab, your next tab is called the settings tab. Within the settings tab, you have streamer settings, source settings, zone settings, system settings, and your macro builder, all within your setup tab. First, let's go have a look at streamer settings, okay? Streamer settings right here. I go in and select my device name. Then I can go in right here, and if I want to, because my streamer has AirPlay, do I want to password protect AirPlay? Do I want other people to be able to AirPlay to my device? If I don't, I simply put a password in here and hit apply. If I don't care, then I just leave it blank, and there's no worries. And then within the services, I can enable and disable services just by dragging and dropping them within the enable or disable list. If I didn't want SiriusXM, for example, in here, I would just drag and drop that over to the disable side. It's gone. That's it. It would not appear on any of the keypads or in any of the list of available services. So I can go in and do this by zone. By device. So very, very easy to do. My source settings, say like on an 88X, I have 8 sources, right? So I have 8 source IDs. I have 8 source names. I can go in and instead of calling them source 1, source 2, source 3, let's give them custom names, right? I really think that, you know, Bluetooth is cool enough. Everybody knows what that is. But streamer, you know, there could be a couple in the system. One could be mom's streamer or what have you. Customize it a little bit more. But anyway, go and enable that particular source, then hit the edit button, and that'll jump you over to source 1 setup, for example, Bluetooth. First thing I would do is go in and set my Drunk Larry feature, my volume trim right here for that particular zone. Usually you run it up to the top, then kick it back a notch or two, and call it good. Then my source information for my device type, and then where I want my primary zone to be for Bluetooth. And I set that right here. And then if I'm done, I hit done. If not, I hit next. Now it takes me to source number 2, which is my DVD player. Now I go in and set my volume trim. Then my DVD player obviously is a third-party device, right? So I'm not going to be able to control it with the Russound app unless I learn that you know, the device code for this particular guy. Then my buttons will all work. So I have to go in and select my device type, which is a DVD player. Then I'm going to go in and select my manufacturer, which is Denon. If I hit the drop down, I have every manufacturer you can imagine there. So I just select Denon. And then it'll show me what all the device codes are for that Denon piece. I start trying codes, right? Hit the power button, see if it works. Guess what? In this particular case, if it's a Denon DVD changer, that IR code happens to be one of those very few out there that is not in the IR code library. And we use that for a reason, to show you that if that IR code isn't there, don't worry. You can learn IR. You can learn play, stop, pause, skip forward, skip backward, you know, disc 1, disc 2, disc 3. You can learn all of that stuff through learned IR. You know, numeric IR we already talked about. We know what that is. And learning IR is something that all I would do is go in and check what key codes I want to learn and, you know, volume up, volume down, mute, channel up, channel down. Just select the ones I want, hit learn. I'll see a status bar, boom, learned. That's all there is to it. And then remembering that the numeric IR was basically for devices where you had to hit several buttons to make something happen. Again, such as on a cable box, some of the old cable boxes. Channel 5, enter. You had to hit 3 buttons. Channel 5, enter. Well, numeric IR, once I set that up, all I do is I select that cable box, I hit 5. I go to channel 5. That's all. That's what that's all about. Now, power management, this is where I go in and set up for all on, all off, right? The way that all works is that all of our controllers have signal sensing source inputs. Signal sensing source inputs are listening for audio from all connected sources. And if for any reason it doesn't hear audio from a connected source, it will automatically send a power on command out to that device and turn it on for you to keep your entire system in sync. Then it'll listen for audio again. And if it doesn't sense signal, it will send that power on command out again. It will do that up to 3 times for each source. And if it does not hear signal after the 3rd time, well, maybe that source just isn't in the system anymore. So on it goes. But I would go in and set my power on command, and then I would go in and set my power off command, all based around my signal sensing. And then when I go in and I hit a button on a keypad that press say all on, then my controller comes on, all of my sources come on. I hit all off, my controller shuts off. 5 minutes later, all the sources shut off. Power management. Great way to go, keeping that entire system in sync so you don't have to hit multiple power buttons just to get that system up and running. So those are your 3 steps. That's it. Now, in your controller settings page, the zone setting, excuse me, there's a few different things I'm going to do in here. First of all, I'm going to do my zone volume trim right here. Okay, that's where I go in and set that up to make sure that you know, the volume will not exceed that particular point. Now, my line output setting, I can sit here, you know, for example, on MCA 66, I can see that my 66 has line output for zone 1 and 2. And on my 88, I have line outputs for all 8 zones, right? Well, do I want, if I'm going to use one of those, the line output in this particular zone, do I want that to be fixed or variable? That's where I would select it right here in the output type. If I wanted whatever's connected to that line output to for the volume to go up and down with the interface, I would set it to variable. If I wanted to put outboard volume controls on each pair of speakers, whatever's connected to this, I would set it to fixed. Okay, so that's where I would select it though, right here in my line output. For all on participation, either enable or disable. That's all. Zone output type. Do I want to use only the line outputs, or do I want, for this particular zone, or do I want to use the speaker output and the line output at the same time, so I can do multiple pairs of speakers in a zone? Okay, I can do that right here just by hitting speaker and line. Now my so for example, on 88X, my speaker output at 40 watts per channel is active, and then the corresponding zone line output is also active. So whatever amplifier I connect to that, they're all active at the same time. That's how I would set that right there. Party mode participation for this zone. Do I want it to be able to participate in party mode? Yes or no? Enable or disable it. Master party, the party master, excuse me. Yes or no? Enable or disable. Source availability. What sources do I want to appear on my source list for this particular zone? That's where I would show that. So all of these little things right here can be done right here in the zone settings. Then if I'm all done, I hit done, and if I want to go to the next zone, I just would hit next. Now that would take me to zone number 2. Okay, and I would have the same exact questions to follow here in zone number 2. So again, very, very easy. Now, the zone linking that we spoke about earlier, this is where I would go in and set up zone linking. Zone linking is like, for example, in this one, if I can do either zone linking or source linking. I can do them both. The same thing. They just happen to follow each other around. But in this case, I would take zone 1, add it to group 1, zone 2, add it to group 1. Boom, now I've zone linked zone 1 and 2 together in group 1. Then I could take, say, zone 3, group 2, zone 4, group 2. Now, zone 3 and 4 are zone linked as one zone in group 2. So each of those 2 areas now is capable of driving 2 pairs of speakers in each of those zones. Pretty cool stuff. In my system settings, this is where I go in and set all my RS-232 output type. I go in and select my protocol, whether I'm going to do RS-232 or RNet, or what I'm going to do RIO, which is Russound Input-Output Protocol for third-party devices, things along those lines. This is where I go in and set that up. and then I can set my date and time format right here, whether I want to do regular standard, 12, 24-hour type, how I want to do this, set my time and date. Plus I can go in and the configuration password, any of you familiar with web config would be happy to know that the config password is now disabled by default, whereas before it was enabled by default. So you always had to go in and put in that Russound 123. Well, now it's disabled by default. If you want to protect your configuration with a password, you go in here and add one, okay? And then your usage stat report, you can enable or disable that. That allows the text to be able to go in and do diagnostics, things along those lines with your system. So macros. What is a macro? We already talked about that a little bit, but let's look at the example down here. Okay, that's the one we talked about. This is a 5-step macro. My first drop down, I'd select receiver and on as my key code. And then I would, in the next drop down, I would select DVD, and then I would select DVD on as my next command. Then I would select TV and on as my next drop down. And then I would select play on DVD as my next step. So now I have 5 steps. Single button press, the receiver turns on. It selects DVD as a source. It turns the DVD player on. It turns the TV on. It hits the play button for you on the DVD player. 1 button, you're watching a movie. Simple. Instead of 5 buttons. What would you rather show your customer when you're showing them how to run the system? 1 button. It really simplifies operation. And they provide elaborate source functionality, but keep things really simple for the end user. All you're going to do is go into the macro builder. You can do up to 10 of these. So you give it a macro number and then give it a name, right? And then go in and hit add step. And then when you hit add step, you're going to go to here, and now you're just going to go in and, okay, power, open, close, what output type, all of these. You just go in and select what steps you want it to do and what order you want those to do. And then you hit, you can go add a step and now go into your next device and add all the steps for that guy, and then you just save it. And that's all there is to it. That's your macro builder. Now next to the setup tab, the final tab you have is called support. And in the support tab, you go down and first thing you're going to find is Russound support. You click on that and that'll get you right to Russound support. You can go to the Russound homepage in our web site. And then also you can go right directly to Russound training. You can have an email to Russound support right from here, and all of the contact information that you would need. So everything is right there for you. We're here to help you if you run into any issues. But as you can see, web config is so simple and easy to understand and to navigate that we're just not getting any questions on it anymore. So the only questions that we're really getting on these is how do I go in and set up all of my music services, Pandora, Spotify, what is Spotify Connect, all of that. Well, one of the guys here right now in training is working on a great webinar for you folks as to how to set up all of your music services to take the best advantage of them, and what do they cost, how many devices do they cover, all that kind of stuff, and then the media server and AirPlay and Bluetooth and all of that. That will all be, that's all in the works for you folks right now. So with that, that's all from us here today. So I want to thank you for joining me and spending your lunch time with me. And so I hope you enjoy the rest of the day, enjoy your customers, and we'll see you next time. Thank you for joining us.